Thank you, Ben. Good evening and welcome to the school committee open hearing. Before we open the hearing, we're going to, and we'll need a vote to do that, we will just hear from Dr. Cummings. He's going to give a very brief refresh of the GPS budget, and then we will open it up to the public for questions.
Right.
Thanks, Jay.
So I just pulled out a few slides to summarize the FY25 budget. As you know, we're putting forward a level service budget, meaning ideally students, staff, et cetera, are not negatively impacted in any way by the budget in FY25. Our total budget request is a 3.7% increase over FY24, $45,034,000. It's the last year of that 5-year override plan. So obviously it's a little tighter than we'd like it to be. We've been through 2 overrides. Year 5 both times was challenging. What we're going to do to close the gap, there's about a $1.4 million gap that we faced, and we're going to utilize some reductions in supplies, some reductions in maintenance, custodial, that type of thing in terms of non-personnel, which I'll get to in a second, but a combination of that, but the majority is going to be filled in with revolver funds that we've built up over the last couple of years. Obviously, we knew that year 5 would be exceptionally challenging. I wish we had more money in reserve to close that gap and give us more of a kind of a safety net next year, but you know, we'll take what we have, and it should work for FY25. So I know it's small, but it's also in the budget book. About, I think it's $930,000 out of the $1.4 million gap that we had between the preliminary 6.8% increase and where we're at now at 3.7%. About $930,000 is going to come from revolvers, and that'll work for a year. But obviously, we don't have enough. Once you spend out, we don't have that for the following year. I've talked extensively about the need for the town to have to consider another override next year because, and as Evan Broussard illustrated, the town just financially is not going to be able to move forward productively without one. So that's going to leave us, if everything goes according to plan, we'd end next year with basically a savings. Like that cushion next year at the end of the year is about $763,000. That's probably a little bit optimistic. This is obviously representative. If somebody moves into the district that we're not aware of, we've got to cover whatever those needs are. If somebody goes out of district that's not expected, we've got to cover that transportation and tuition costs. So 763 would be an unprecedented small margin for us as illustrated here. So in past years, we've at least had a couple $1 million where if we had to, we could utilize those funds. But that's a very different story at the end of 25. And I think that's the summary. So total budget, $45,034,624.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jay.
Right.
Oh, you taking a picture of me? I thought you were. All right, so now we need to vote to open the public hearing. So can I have a motion, please?
I move to open the public hearing.
Second. All those in favor? All right, so we can take questions from our community. If you can come up and just introduce yourself and where you live, and then ask away. And because it's a public hearing, we have the ability to be able to answer any questions if we can, or we'll get back to you with answers. So anybody here who wants to have a question? Okay.
Christy Kilbazinski, Lottie Drive. I just have a question, Dr. Cummings. Revolver accounts, are those considered restricted or unrestricted?
For the most part, restricted.
So how are we using those if they're restricted funds? What are they restricted? What is the use that they
So
could?
like transportation, for example.
Right.
You could use that for anything related to transportation bills, to some degree maintenance and custodial.
Okay.
would fall under transportation, plowing, et cetera, that takes place where the buses travel. So it is restricted. You couldn't pay a teacher out of
Right.
transportation, for example.
Okay, I just wanted to double check on that.
Food service and money we bring in there, obviously, it can go to equipment in the kitchens, but in staffing, but we couldn't fund a teacher or a
Yeah,
parent
yeah.
out of that. The most open-ended one by far is school choice for us.
Okay.
And that you pretty much can spend on any need.
And school choice goes into a revolver account, not into,
Correct.
okay.
Yep. And the other big one is circuit breaker, and that has to go towards the tuitions for out-of-district placement.
Okay. And what do we pay the tuitions for our out-of-district placements out of?
It's offset by circuit breaker, but it's also in the budget.
Okay. And you know that, like, you know a year in advance how many kids are going to be going outside of the district?
We at least have our best guess. That's worrisome every single year, like right now, where obviously, whether it's tonight or in a month, the school committee will vote. We could have, when I was in Shrewsbury, we had 8, I think it was 8, it might have been 5, students who did not, all out-of-district students moved in 1 month in the spring after the budget had been voted on,
Right.
which
that's
posed a
coming into the
tremendous
district.
issue. There are so many IEP meetings that take place. I think we do a pretty good job of tracking students and knowing, who's headed potentially
Out of
out of district, because that tuition's huge. I don't know what the average is, but it's got to be close to, if not above 100,000. And transportation is right up there too.
Okay. That was another question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. It's always our favorite part of the year when we get to sit here, but we will keep the hearing open until 7 in case somebody comes in. Also, Dr. Cummings is going to present to the Finance Committee tomorrow night, so you'll have another chance to watch the budget, and of course, that's the night for the FinCom. But it's a good chance to watch it and understand. I'll also open it up to the committee if you thought of any additional questions since you last saw the budget, since we're here. Okay.
Well, it's not about the budget. Can I ask a question that's not about the budget?
No,
Kind of about the budget, but not really.
I mean, you can ask it during the meeting,
I could.
but not now. Sorry.
Caden's. We don't have Caden, but we do have his PowerPoint.
Oh, great. We can always move him if he's late. I'm gonna give it 2 more minutes and then I'll close it so we have a couple minutes before our regular meeting. If somebody comes and desperately needs to talk, I'm sure we can accommodate. All right, can I have a motion to conclude the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, and that concludes our public hearing. We will reconvene in about 2 minutes for our regular school committee. Thank you for tuning in, Grafton. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email any one of us or Dr. Cummings. Always happy to answer. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Grafton School Committee meeting for March 12th, 2024. Before Kanan, actually, I will open it up to public comment. Sorry, Kanan. If anybody has anything, you can just stay where you are, and if we need to rearrange, we can. Anybody have anything? Okay. Great. Well, then it is my pleasure to welcome back Caden Ashmore today, who is going to talk about his success over the past month or so, or continued success in science. And we wanted to just come back and really just honor you and hear about what you're doing. And we're just so proud and happy to have you. So I'm going to turn it right over to you, Caden.
Thank you all for having me again. I guess to start, I'll be going through an update on achievements, research progress, and then the Science Engineering Club. So for achievements, this past fall, I went to MIT for MJAS, which is the Massachusetts Junior Academy of Science. And I think about 20 of us got through to this competition. And to get through, you either had to get first place at the state fair or go to the international fair. And I think either 8 or 10 of us got through to the American Junior Academy of Science, which was held in Denver, Colorado, I think mid-February. So pretty recently, I just came back from there. And it was held with AAAS, which is the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and it's the largest association of scientists in the world. It wasn't a competition. It was really just learning from the people in the field, networking with them, getting LinkedIns, things like that. But everyone there was just they called it the most premier high schoolers in the nation were the ones invited, so it's a cool title. But there were some really cool speakers. There's Dr. Yamamoto, who was the president of AAAS, as well as Dr. I think Sandra Richardson. Yeah, we had a breakfast with researchers, and I got the opportunity to sit with her. And she was a really amazing lady. I think she's the president of research at the National Science Foundation, and she has a lot of internships that she gives out. So I made sure to get her LinkedIn. But she was really cool. Here is, on the top left, is someone speaking. I think he was a test pilot for a stealth bomber, some aircraft. I don't really know what it is, but it sounds cool. In the bottom left is a picture of me. I went to Dinosaur Ridge, which was, I think, the number one or the largest. What was it? It's like the group of dinosaur tracks. I think the largest one in the nation. I think that's where they found like the first stegosaur bone. I don't know. It's their state animal. I think it's a stegosaur because they found that. But in the bottom middle, there's our group from the state doing an escape room, and I thought it was a cool idea because we're pretty smart, and I think it'd be cool to get like a group of us together for it. And I thought we'd finish in like 10 minutes, but we only had 15 to spare, so I'm kind of disappointed, but it was still good.
Only.
It's better than I've ever heard anyone do, so that's
And
It's
no
better than my
clues.
family's ever been.
Oh.
And then in the bottom right is me getting 6 feet from Mr. Cummings. That's the only photo you'd enjoy. But and then on the far right is some ice climbing. I do a lot of climbing around. I went to a place called Otter Cliffs in Maine, which is just, there's a lot of like bouldering spots. So I really like to climb. That was the first chance I've gone to ice climb, which I don't know how many of you know, but you have like 2 like pickaxes and then you like slam into a wall and then you kick the wall with your shoes that have spikes on them. I have like a giant black spot on one of my toes because I kicked it too hard, but I'm hoping it heals soon. For research, this is what I've done recently. I had a QCC class, just Physics 101, and you can upgrade your classes to an honors project or an honors class if you do some kind of like capstone project with the class. So I did a small physics project for the professor, and she really liked it. So she worked tightly with me to try and publish it. And so I think just a couple weeks ago, it got published in the Engineering and Technology Journal. So I don't know if you want to look it up, but it's a long title. It's called Physics Applied to the Sailboat Optimum Upwind Path Algorithm. So if you look that up, you'll see a published article.
Wow.
So at AJAS, when I went, the president of AAAS, Dr. Yamamoto, he did a big keynote about how America is falling behind in K-12 STEM. I think the leaders right now are either China or Japan. And he did a big talk about how we need to kind of promote more STEM within our schools. And another big thing he said was trying to break down the barriers, he called it, between disciplines. So kind of joining together physics, chemistry, biology, all those things so that we can learn from one another. I think it's a great idea that he had. So what can GHS do? I think it would be a good idea if some STEM clubs like the Science and Engineering Club, robotics, the Coding Honor Society, math team, anything like that, if they kind of join together some meetings, maybe learn from one another to kind of branch out into different disciplines, things like that. And another thing could just be within class, like physics AP and chemistry AP, just as an example. They could have a lab where they try to launch a rocket using like a chemical reaction. So maybe each lab or each group would be comprised of half physics students, half chemistry, and they work together to do different parts of the project. And then this one's a bit of a stretch, but maybe having like a part-time STEM coach, kind of like athletics, like because all the clubs in the school are ran by teachers who are there for the full day, but then sports teams have people that just come over for sports, so they're more kind of focused, I guess. So they could have some kind of STEM coach that works with either just the science club or even robotics as well. They could be a little more motivated to help in the specific subject, maybe with the scientific engineering method, things like that. And yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. That's fantastic. I really appreciate that last slide for sure. Any questions, comments from the committee? Liz?
The first thing that springs to mind is I was just curious, did you just dream up these ideas? Did you get some inspiration from some of the people you heard speak at the conferences you've been to? Or
Yeah.
What inspired some of these ideas?
The cross-discipline part, that was from Dr. Yamamoto. I kind of stole that from him. I emailed him and asked for the slides that he used at the keynote, and like within like 20 minutes he sent me it, and so I can even edit it. But yeah, he just sent that to me, and I looked through, took some of the images I think that were on a prior slide, and I kind of took that idea. The STEM coach, I don't know how I thought of that, because I don't even know if it would work. I mean, none of the other clubs do it, so I don't know. That's why it's a bit of a stretch. But I was thinking about Mr. Cummings, coaching our track team. He was a big inspiration for that idea. He was very focused on Grace. And yeah, I don't know. Some of it I stole, some of it just came up. But
They're very good ideas.
thank you.
One other question I had was, and this may be part of it, but you talked about promoting more STEM, and I know you've tried to get more students participating in the science fair and things like that, but do you have any other ideas about how to get more kids involved in STEM? And maybe like what you've been doing with STEM is very interesting. It stems off of an interest you had in sailing, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of kids maybe may not be aware of all the different things that they can
Right.
do in those types of careers. Do you have any ideas about how we might expose kids to get them more interested in looking into STEM careers and STEM classes at school?
Yeah, I think the last talk that I was here, I think helped, because this year the club fair had a lot more groups, and it's the first time I've gotten to walk around, because before I was presenting and I had to stand on my poster, but this time I didn't have to. And I got to check them out, and there were some really cool projects, so I was kind of proud of them. I'd like to say a bit of it's because of me, but yeah, they had some really cool projects, and a lot of them were in like those specific things you wouldn't expect. I know one group I looked at a lot. They were researching different football positions and then seeing like whose helmets they have padding in different areas, and because they all love to play football and they love to watch football, all things football. And I thought it was really cool, because I would not think of that as like a science fair project. Like, it seems really really different from what you'd first think as like a physics or chemistry. But they were just like examining the brain, and they came up with a cool, like the best padding for every position. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was super cool. But to get other people into it, I really don't know. It's really just getting the word out on a big platform. I think maybe even on a platform that all parents see, because the kids don't really read those things. Like, I don't. I'm one of them. Like a Schoology post, I've tried that before. It doesn't really do too much. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have a post like all parents see, but that would probably be the best platform, I guess. Kind of saying, if you're passionate about any topic and you're passionate about STEM, you can probably link those two. Like, mine is just liking to sail, and I managed to make a whole project, and theirs is just football. I think like any passion can be translated to a science fair project, honestly.
Thanks.
That's a good quote. My PR
Write that
brain
down.
is going.
Like
Rebecca, I
good
saw
quotes
your
there.
head.
I have a question, and I really don't even expect an answer, so I don't know why I'm asking you. But I feel like often by the time kids are in high school or even middle school, I used to teach middle school, so I saw it a lot. They've already decided they don't like science. Like, there's a lot of kids that walk in the door, they've already turned off to it. And it's like, how do we reach those kids? But two, where do you think that's coming from? Like, that obviously didn't happen to you. And also, on top of that, the other part that I worry about, and I hope this doesn't sound rude, but you're a little intimidating. So like, if you're the one promoting, like, come do STEM, it's like, dude, but that kid is like real smart. I don't know if I can do it. And so I want to make it like accessible. And I worry that we're focusing on like, what can Grafton High School do? And I feel like it needs to happen a lot earlier, because there's already kids that are like, I'm done. I don't like science. And it broke my heart that, like, as a middle school science teacher, my whole goal was like, I want you to take science when you go to high school because you want to, right? Like, that's what I want. And so anyway, that was just me rambling at you about how I like science. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll answer the second part first. In my personal experience, I think in 8th grade, I think biology is the only thing they really teach. I was enjoying it, and then at the end, the teacher wouldn't recommend me for honors in high school, and that's where I almost gave up on science. But I think I went straight to Mr. Cody, and then I think I just had a meeting with him about how I do a bunch of work over summer to try and get into that class, and then I got in and finished with I think an A, and it was just a really good. I really enjoyed the course, and that's what set me up to take the other kinds of disciplines. So I want to be I don't know if it's cheesy, but I guess just the opportunity to kind of take that first course that you want to. Because I don't know, maybe if they don't do well in 7th grade or 8th grade, that's kind of only one type of science. You can't really explore those other kinds. So I don't know, maybe the middle school class, if it kind of branches out into more topics early on, maybe, because I don't like biology, I'll be honest. I don't like anatomy either. But I like physics and chemistry, and if I didn't do well in that one class, I probably wouldn't have went to take those. So I guess if that answers it.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I'm a little petty as a person in general. Did
Okay.
you go back to the science teacher
No, I
with your award and be like in your face? Do you want me to email them?
They're watching the meeting.
I can send this meeting.
Parker. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll call
I
names.
love Mrs. Parker.
I actually really like her.
Yeah.
She's really cool.
Cheers to Mrs. Parker.
She has a son on the Tantascwa team that high jump, so I beat him at that too. It's okay.
All right, guys.
Send her a note with a little. What's the candies she likes? She likes some particular candy. I
I
don't
don't know. She was really nice though.
She is. She's a great teacher.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Did that answer?
I think so. I don't
know if I got all of
I feel
it.
like it's kind of true for a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
Like math gets real fun when you get good at it, and it's
Yeah.
real not fun at the beginning and things like that.
I have that right now in Calc 2.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
But it's gonna get even more fun.
Yeah,
so
once I get it, this is fun.
right,
But no,
yeah,
it's not.
it's getting through that. Okay. Yeah, there's not really an answer. Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Amy?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that I don't think that idea is undoable.
Yeah.
I don't know what word that is, but I've definitely heard of schools that have people come in outside, either from industry or from colleges, and either advise clubs or like the robotics team. I know WPI has they've got people, some of the best robotics teams in the state have people from WPI, MIT advising them.
Right.
Not to say our robotics team isn't awesome, they are. But I think that it's important that we look outside of the school itself, because you're right, teachers have a lot. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, when they've been there since 7:00, they don't all have, the extra time. They've got kids of their own and they've got stuff they need to do. I think it would be nice if we looked to the community more and if we could rely on the community more. We've got scientists and engineers who live in Grafton.
Yeah.
Just like we have athletic coaches who live in Grafton and they come in and they coach. So I think it's just a matter of putting the call out and saying, almost like we do for like 8th grade career day, right? Except it's a longer term commitment.
Yeah.
But I think your thoughts are excellent and I look forward to seeing what's in store for you.
No,
Don't be a
thank
stranger.
you. Thank you.
Amrita?
I don't really have a question. I was just gonna say like congrats on all your stuff. Like the football science fair thing, that was my cousin's project. So it's great to hear that they did well.
Yeah.
And I guess it's good that you're motivating younger people, because my cousin who was in the project, I remember in middle school he got a really bad grade on in a class or a science class, and he didn't really want to do science fair, didn't even like science anymore. So I think it's great that you're promoting science and stuff, because a bad grade doesn't mean you're bad at science.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. Happens to the best of us.
Megan?
Yeah, I totally agree with a lot of what you were saying, especially with not liking certain types of science. And I definitely think that because for me it's the opposite. I really do not like physics, chemistry, but I like environmental science and biology and that sort of thing. And I think another aspect of it is maybe incorporating other subjects into science. So learning how scientific writing is and like how science affects the world and like policy impacts. I think that that could be really interesting, exploring that at like a younger age, because it seems like very abstract of like, oh, how does this affect me in my life?
Yeah, I think scientific writing is something I forgot to touch on. I think that's super important. I think in like 8th grade labs, I remember we did labs, but the kind of writing we did were CERs, which is like claim evidence reasoning. And I feel like we should make it a bit more like professional and do like a full lab report. I mean, not a lot of pages. Like, I think my lab report was like 50 pages, and it does not need to be that. But I think starting off slow, just having that structure of what a lab report would be, like introduction, background research that they did, experimentation, and the variables they worked to control, and then like their conclusions, and then what they gained from that data, things like that. I think that would be a big thing that could interest people more on how to write it, because you don't really learn how to do those things anywhere else. There's not a class on scientific writing. So I think that could be cool as well.
Cool. And I almost hate to ask you this week, but do you know what you're doing next year yet, or what you're not
I
yet?
do not.
I'm sorry. You know, in my head, I was like, why are you asking that question?
It's okay.
Literally the worst
No,
thing.
I think
Do you know what you want? Like, you don't have to tell us where you're going, but are you obviously moving on towards science? Or?
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
You'd hope so. I think I've heard back from a little over half of the colleges so far, so it's a little early to make a decision.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely something science related. Yeah.
That was more what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm leaning on computer engineering, I think is where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Well,
I just had one more
Yeah.
comment to make, and that is that if scientific and professional technical writing are things that are of interest to people, those are college courses. They are offered. You can take them. You can also get a degree in technical, scientific, and professional communication. Ask me how I know. Go ahead, ask me.
How do you know?
I have one. WPI.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's a field, because not all scientists and engineers are effective communicators, and sometimes they need people alongside them to do that part for them. And so that's what I am trained in.
My mom's a technical writer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's why your lab reports are so great.
yeah, I was just gonna,
Right?
I was just gonna drop that he
familiar.
knows that really well.
That's
He-
awesome.
He knows that really well.
Very cool.
Well, Kaden, thank you so much for coming
Yes, of
back and
course.
indulging
Thank you.
us. You are a wonderful representative of Grafton High, and we wish you so much luck in your future, and you are always welcome back. We
Thank
can't
you.
wait to hear what you do next. So
You guys will be the first to know.
please do. Yeah, just send me a message.
I will do.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Thank
gonna
you,
hold you to
Kaden. We can be second. I mean, it's okay.
Tell your mom first.
I'll check the Instagram page. You can go too if you want. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're welcome to stay.
Please stay.
I know.
It's all right.
That was the
Welcome
most
to
fun
stay,
part of our
but-
meeting. You never know.
All right. Where's my agenda?
I'm a biologist, you know.
Biology. Thank you. There's a lot of people. All right. Oh, yay.
Hates the other one. It's kind of one that loves chemistry and hates everything else.
That's what my brother's a quantum
Next
physicist.
up, we have, she's finishing up, Jennifer Mannion back with an update on professional development and a curriculum update. Thank you so much for coming back to see us. It's always a pleasure. You were fine. I think you have held on to that. And yeah.
I think last time I saw Katie was this.
All right, I know. Fun fact.
Is this conference room F?
I'm not even gonna share my phone.
I remember the day he was born.
I was gonna
Fun
say, me
fact.
too. I
He used to be my neighbor.
Yeah, I
he was
worked
born on
with-
the same day as my son, but different years.
Caden's mom
I remember.
when she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I've raised him really.
Yes. He owes a lot to you, Lauren.
And you
Yeah.
as his neighbor.
I like to think we all played a part in creating Katie.
Right. Well, you were his principal. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all for having me back. I'm just going to, provide an overview of what we have been up to in the curriculum and staff development department since I saw you last. So I'll talk a little bit about curriculum, a little bit about professional development, a little bit about student achievement, and then in subsequent school committee meetings, you'll hear more from Tracy and Steve. So the math pilot has been a big focus of our work as a department. And we are happy to report that we have selected a resource, and by we I mean the math team 7 to 12. We have selected illustrative math, which is published by Imagine Learning. And we're going to use this resource actually 6 through 12. And we chose illustrative for several reasons. I think one of the most important was access and equity. We were really looking for a resource that had that low floor, high ceiling avenue to it, and looking for mathematical discourse, mathematical thinking, all those, that conceptual piece more than traditional memorize the algorithm, apply it over and over, take the assessment. So I think we're really excited. It's got a great teacher dashboard in terms of the resources. So I feel like it's nimble and ease of use. So that was a lot of work and a lot of time investment from our math teachers. So we really just want to extend my gratitude to them for doing this heavy lift, because it takes a team. But I think they did a really nice job in selecting a great resource. Next steps for that department, K-12, is to look at the vertical alignment of the math standards. This adoption of a new high-quality instructional resource really created the perfect opportunity to do this work. So pictured here, we're starting at upper levels and working our way down. And the approach is, we broke them into two teams in this group. This is pre-calc and calc in one group, and our Algebra 3 teachers in a second group. And they were writing down the must-dos from the standards for the current grade level content, as well as the prerequisites in terms of content knowledge and skills that they would hope that students would come in with. So then there was really rich, robust dialogue when they got together. That's what that third picture is sharing what they had determined were prerequisite skills, looking for gaps, overlap, agreement, places for discourse among them to make decisions. So that people feel like they can really address the current grade level standards, knowing students are going to come prepared for what that offers. So we're really excited that that work will just trickle down all the way to kindergarten. In terms of our language arts pilot, that one, our goal was to adopt a knowledge-based curriculum built on the simple view of reading. And in our pilot, again, a heavy lift for the people doing the pilot work. Some of them are here and did a fantastic job. And in our pilot, Wit and Wisdom edged out my view, my perspective. And then due to what I'm calling a budget-induced pause, we have an opportunity to take advantage of this little lapse in time to look at some additional resources. So originally, a resource called Curate was used, and Curate vets high-quality instructional resources, materials, and looks primarily at alignment with mass frameworks. So that's how my view and Wit and Wisdom were chosen in the spring. And we have since added a new resource to look at resources called Knowledge Matters, and we looked at Ed Reports, which also are looking more at the simple view of reading, science of reading piece in terms of resource selection. So those are things that are important to us, so we felt like it would be worth looking at a few other resources aligned with those practices. So we're looking at EL Education and Fish Tank as two that we chose from Knowledge Matters and Ed Report. And we're not piloting, we're just having a demo from each company, chunk of time for a demo, and then teachers will play around in it. And then this is all going to be in one upcoming day. Second resource will demo, teachers will play around it in kind of mixed teams, and then we'll have open license to the source. Fish Tank will give us 30 days, EL will give us till we make a decision to comparison shop and play and look at all the bells and whistles and see which one is most teacher friendly, which one hits our needs, aligns with our values in the classroom. So in terms of what we're looking for, in terms of knowledge-based curriculum, we're looking for really a solid foundational piece in early literacy skills. And we're looking for a resource where we can continue to use Foundations, Heggerty, the things that we have for the decoding piece, and allow us to build the knowledge-based piece on that. Looking for explicit vocabulary instruction, where repeated exposures to new academic vocabulary and content-specific vocabulary. Looking to grow general knowledge of the world, which we know aids comprehension and critical thinking. Looking for students to be able to engage in discourse, think critically, use evidence to support their thinking, and communicate clearly. And of course, build solid reading habits and stamina through close reading, challenging content-rich contexts. So it's in contrast to the more balanced literacy approach we've taken in the past, where we tended to offer students reading at their ability level, current ability level, and independent reading time. And we know now that really pushing the complexity of the text with teacher instruction and guided practice is more productive, gives us better results. And the simple view of reading, this is a great visual to encapsulate what we mean when we say that. Word recognition and language comprehension, when you combine instruction in those, lead to strong reading comprehension. So it looks like the red box word recognition might be early literacy, and the blue might be later elementary. But really, this is a K-12 function of language acquisition and reading comprehension. Any questions on pilots? Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah, I'm just a little unclear on the language arts. Was that K-12?
Sorry, nope, that is K-6.
K-6, okay. And what, still a little unclear, what will the teachers use next year?
If we're hoping that by May we'll be able to adopt, we'll have finances to adopt. So if we do, we'll choose one of these resources, Wit and Wisdom, EL, or
Okay,
Fish
so those are
Tank.
just open source
If not,
curriculum.
we can certainly build a knowledge-based curriculum. We have the resources, the materials. It's a heavy lift. It's taking science and social studies curriculum, determining what we use instructionally. But I think that we can continue with what we have and shifting that focus through PD and science of reading while we bridge this gap to adoption.
They're not open source. They have to be purchased.
EL and Fish Tank are
correct?
open source,
Oh, okay.
so we could get lessons, lesson plans and unit designs, but we can't get all the assessment tools, the data tracking tools, the text sources. So what you're paying for really are the novels, the reading selections, the professional development, the digital platform that we would use to monitor student progress.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So I feel like Caden was a plant in all your questions. I was sitting in the back going, oh, I can answer that. Oh, I can answer that. So I really couldn't wait to get to this part. We had our interviews today. We submitted 5 grants for the town of Grafton, one for each of the elementary schools and one for the middle school, to Project Lead the Way, and had our interviews today as part of our grant process. And they were very optimistic. Our interviews went well. We got lots of positive feedback. So we're hoping to hear by the end of March that we've been selected as recipients of these grants. Project Lead the Way is a very hands-on, problem-based approach to STEM. It's intercurricular. It's actually pre-K to 12. So part of our grant proposal is that we would intend to do an expansion grant to include grades 9 through 12 in the following year. These will be 3-year grants. So we've already worked with the high school administrative team around feasibility of expanding the grant. And it was new to me that there's a preschool component to this, so I think that we could also look at preschool. We are going to bring it to students in Grafton, if we're selected, through our tech ed classes initially. Some districts do it through science courses. We are also looking at shifts in science instruction and practices to more performance-based tasks and assessments. That's going to be a big shift for our teachers who teach science next year. It felt more manageable to approach this through more of the engineering piece for the next, and computer science aspects through our tech ed classes next year. Our elementary tech ed teachers will also become trainers of teachers, so we could extend it, as will our tech integration specialist here in the IT department, so that we can look to expanding it potentially if we want to add modules into a science class through one of the core content teachers. So we'll probably have, in addition to the tech ed teachers, we'll probably have our 6th grade science teachers and our tech integration person trained as trainers so that we can spread the wealth and have this real ripple effect. I was building principal in a Project Lead the Way school the last several years, and the kinds of projects I've seen and conversations I've had with kids really, I think, hit the things that you were asking about. It's a career-focused option. So even as early as kindergarten, they start talking to students about, you can do this in your job someday, to really open up kids' perspective on what the avenues are. to follow their passions. So we had a grade span who had to design an amusement park ride, and I went in and was asking each group in their showcase if they had failed and what they had learned, and every single group responded enthusiastically, "Oh yeah, we failed, and we did it. Our person's head kept hitting the ground, and we had to change the slope and the speed, and everything you'd want to hear." They weren't following a recipe and producing what everybody else was producing. They were all completely different, multiple iterations. A big piece of the approach, and I think the philosophy that we would have here in Grafton, is how to engage industry professionals in providing students feedback as they iterate. And I want to really shift our focus from the final product to the learning process and showcasing that. So we had kids designing robots, and they had to go a certain distance and stay on a certain course. We had students designing adaptive footwear for people with disabilities. One of the modules our students would engage in is designing an adaptive toy. So it's high interest, very engaging, very hands-on, a lot of critical thinking, a lot of open-ended questioning, where students are iterating and finally producing a product and showcasing that. And it no longer stops at the showcase. This is part of an innovative shift in education called applied learning. So that last piece is kids spiral back, they reflect and think about, how is what I learned from this going to impact my language arts, my history, my science, my social studies classes this year, next year, what I do outside of school in terms of interests and things. So I think that reflective, connective piece is really important. So as you can see, I'm really stoked. Our team was really excited. On our interview team was administrators, curriculum department members, teachers. Neil was there in terms of the tech piece to support. So pretty fired up about that. We also have done some work at the high school in terms of physical education offerings and health standards alignment. So our process was, we met as a leadership team and talked about what we wanted to see in shifts in terms of physical education, instruction, and participation. We devised a survey for students and administered that to the student body, but great feedback. And we're able to analyze that data. The teachers took that on and looked at other districts' course offerings to see what kinds of shifts are happening. And through the Blackstone Valley Curriculum Consortium, we've had people participating in PD around physical education this year, which has been great in terms of Project Adventure, things like that. So the end outcome was 4 additional course offerings for next year, as well as different pathways for meeting the graduation requirement in terms of phys ed health, combination of phys ed health. And in addition to that, Tracy worked with the 9 through 12 teachers on vertically aligning the health standards, which are new, and that work will continue to trickle down in years to come. So usually a curriculum review cycle is 5 to 6 years. A lot of the resources we adopt, we do a 6-year contract with because it makes the most sense fiscally. So this graphic is really to organize my own thinking. I laugh with Jay because really I put everything in that first box the first year and want to do it all and do it well. So this kind of helps me remember what's manageable and tried to lay out a pathway that made the most sense for the district in terms of needs and priorities. So you can see we go from preparing, prioritizing, planning, to investigating and selecting, to implementing, refining and aligning, and then refine, align, and assess to see what's going to happen in year 5 or 6. We're going to continue with that resource. Are there changes to be made? I always say we work in a research-based profession, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but by the time you hit the end of that 5-year cycle, you're often looking at shifts in standards or shifts in research. So you can see that in our literacy instruction right now in the district, in our math instruction right now in the district, and science. Any questions on curriculum before we talk about professional development?
Questions, Liz?
Yeah, you can tell me.
You can go back if.
Yeah, we
if
can.
you're-
All right,
let's
yeah,
do
if
it
you're
at
not
the
ready.
end. I was
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
It's okay.
building it up.
That one down, that wasn't supposed to happen. But so we've been busy in the terms of professional development. Teachers, by the end of the year, each school will have participated in trauma-informed practices. We're using LifeLink through UMass. ALICE safety training is occurring. So those two we've kind of flip-flopped because they take similar amounts of time. At the secondary level, they have continued to engage in universal design for learning. I think of that as the sister to differentiations. So UDL, it's creating a menu of options that all students can access based on their needs and learning style. And then differentiation is more what do we know we have to do for this learning style and need. At the K to 6 level, Steve has led work in standards-based reporting related to the new report cards and how we report out on student progress. We, as part of our TFM process, came up with anti-bias curriculum review tool and did professional development in the buildings around how to utilize that tool. And we took Dr. Cummings' awesome idea of how to offer sort of like mini PD offerings within the district. We call it Click, Connect, and Create, because I love me some alliteration. We've had staff come forward to lead sessions on the science of reading, co-teaching, and social emotional learning. And Neil Trihan and I co-chair the AI task force in the district. One of the subcommittees is professional development. So we're working on another offering around leveraging AI in the classroom for PD. So most of the Click, Connect, Create has been led so far by administration. We all collaborated and built a template that we could use regardless of the content of the PD, and have modeled it for participants. So we've had over 50 people participate, and several have said, I'd like to facilitate a course at some point so that we can just then hand off the template and support people in the structure and allow them to do that. So pretty psyched about the degree of participation we've had in those offerings.
Jen, can I ask a question before?
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about the anti-bias curriculum? So is that looking to?
It's a tool, and we use the tool, teachers use the tool to vet resources that they bring into the classroom, whether it's something the district is purchasing and promoting, or it's something the teacher wants to bring in, an article, something like that. So it's not to identify bias and eliminate the resource, it's to
Right.
identify bias and then create an instructional plan around how to address it with kids. So the Johnny Appleseed book that we all saw when we were young ourselves, that yellow cover, I bet you remember it. Native Americans are depicted all wearing headdresses and adopting certain roles in the story. So rather than not use the resource, the tool supports teachers in creating a plan and how to talk to students about implicit bias, where it comes from, how we address it. So we created the tool and then created PD to support teachers' understanding how to use the tool.
Are teachers using that for curriculum already implemented, or is it just for new things?
Both. I think both. I think for curriculum already implemented, I think it has created a lens so that when teachers come across it, they know what to do. Our social studies department at the high school did a tremendous job doing some of this work, and I was able to use some of their examples to share with other grade spans in terms of how you can respond, what you can do, looking at language of textbooks, things like that. And then also, I think it gives people an avenue to bring the outside in, song lyrics, ads, whatever it is you want to use to engage students, and have a confidence that you can approach this and document your efforts.
Great, thank you.
you're
Any
welcome.
other questions? Amy?
I just had a quick question about the Click, Connect, Create, which I love. How, I know you said you had teachers say that they would like to offer, what is the incentive?
Money.
So that was my question.
No, it's commitment to their colleagues.
Is it really?
So
We
it
offer them a little
is-
money?
Yep.
Oh, we do, oh, okay,
It's
okay.
through a grant.
Oh, excellent, okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right,
so
great.
facilitators are being compensated and then participants are being compensated.
Awesome.
It's not money that's gonna change anyone's world.
No.
So really, it's topics that are engaging and really at the forefront of what people are looking for in terms of needs and aspirations with their own learning. It is, we did synchronous virtual, so we did evening courses, so people could attend in their pajamas. It's 5 hours. And then if they want 10 PDPs, we came up with ways to extend the 5 hours to 10 through independent application, because most of these are directly related to practice. So we came up with opportunities for people to embed it into their practice, reflect on it, submit artifacts and reflection, and earn the additional 10 PDPs. So what we're hoping is that we're creating a sustainable model that can continue.
That's great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking.
Any other questions? And again, you have a chance.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. And then another piece of PD that's more embedded in the work we're doing with teams, departments, administrative, like building leadership, just through meetings, is sort of creating a technical, logistical way to engage teams in inquiry cycles. So having a structure for that. And then using the outcomes of those cycles and the data that we have to create what we call a win block, which is a what I need block. Secondary has something similar, I think, in their flex block and academic support. At the elementary level, the current buzzword is to call it a win block. So it can be a time for intervention. So rather than pull kids during the reading class or the math class, we can use our data and pull students for short-term intervention, additional instruction, or enrichment, extension. Teachers can divide and conquer, so design, for a certain cohort, the needs of that cohort, take that group for a couple weeks, and then shake it up a little bit. So it's going to give us some flexibility in doing a better job meeting the needs, diverse needs of our learners based on the data that we have. I also get to work with our ESL teachers in supporting, it used to be our ELL students, it's shifting, it was English language learners, it's shifting to multi-language learners is a more appropriate term because some of our students are multilingual and taking additional languages on top of English here. So our work this year has been around how do we communicate the data that we have to families and stakeholders. So we revised the progress monitoring tool and the timeline for that. So it better aligns with the work they do and when we're reporting out in the district as well as when parents get those access scores. So the elementary teachers are working on progress reports now. Next step is how do we engage middle school, high school in reporting out on progress using the same tool or something similar. So that's been great. They're a hard-working group. So that's it for professional development. I'll go on to student achievement. Unless there's more questions around PD. All right. So in his opening address this year, Dr. Cummings set a long-term goal for the district of 90% of our students attaining proficiency in literacy and mathematics. And it's 90% of all of our students. Our students, our cohorts who sometimes or chronically underperform. We want to make sure everybody's hitting that 90% goal. So we are looking as a department at how we translate our commitment into measurable outcomes. So we're working with principals on how we lead that work. We're working with departments and grade level teams on how we implement that work. And a lot of that is through our use of data. How are we diagnosing? How are we collecting, analyzing, progress monitoring? What kinds of instructional shifts are we making? What kind of instructional resources do we need? And then we also look, because we're a research-based profession, we look at what's lingering from past practices. We spend a lot of time, effort, money learning best practice based on current research, and the research changes. And then so these shifts have to happen, and those shifts take a long time because change is really hard. So we have to figure out what's the barrier. Is some lingering effect of past practice? So our approach is to look at what we're doing well with, and then use those things to leverage student learning, adult learning across the district. So look at all our systems and our goals. So you can see some of those there. I think this reflects really the MTSS Tier 1 systems that we tend to address. And of course, there's more. So I'm not going to go deeply into student achievement. Tracy Kayla will present to you on her work 7 to 12 as leader of teaching and learning. And Steve Wilshire will present on his leadership efforts K to 6. So they'll have more information for you, and we'll have more information in the coming years.
Thank you, Jeff. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Any
Anything else
additional
I can answer?
questions? Yeah, Liz.
I wanted to say mine to the end. Sometimes questions get answered during presentations like
totally.
this. So my question does go back to the beginning, though, back to the what you were saying about the math curriculum, and there are two things that I've heard people talking a lot about in the math department. One of them is an intent to sort of trail the standards-based learning down to the lower grades, where it's, we've been doing that in the high school and then seeing some success, and then maybe starting to implement some of those standards-based learning into the lower grades as well.
What do you mean by that, Liz? Do you know?
The standard, so they test for a standard, then they get to test again to try to meet the standard instead of taking the test, getting a grade, and then moving on to new a
Yeah.
new topic, and then
I would argue that that's
Okay.
probably more prevalent in the elementary. It's more inherent in the elementary instructional model, I think. So I think it's more challenging at the secondary level, and it's not as traditional of approach. So I think that's a shift at the secondary level in terms of how do you assess for proficiency or growth in a standard, because colleges and businesses, people want a transcript with letter grades that they can understand and weight in terms of GPAs.
I think I guess what I'm saying is, so like in the high school they take this, they're assessing for a standard, they get a 7 out of 10 on a test in the math department. They get to take it again. The standard is they're trying to learn this bit of material.
Yep.
That's what I mean. I don't mean like, oh, we're looking for a 2 versus a
Yes, the
you know,
content and skills.
an
we call
A
it.
in this class. What I'm talking about is, that's what I mean, is that
Yeah.
they keep reassessing to accomplish a mastery of the material at some point instead of just moving on. And so what I was wondering was whether that the new curriculum aligns with that sort of assessment. So I don't know if we're
Yes, I feel like the new
Okay.
curriculum aligns with that, and I feel like the work the department is doing, I think they're continuing towards that focus. And what
Yeah.
does that look like?
yeah.
How do we offer that? I think that there was some rethinking in the fall because they felt like students weren't necessarily preparing as well as they could for the assessments. We're
Knowing they could
relying
take
on
it
the
again.
retake piece. So how do you address that? So we've been doing a lot of work on different modes of expression in terms of sharing what you've learned, to assess, and timing, that idea of yet and developmentally, where are students and when do we provide additional touch points so that they can demonstrate proficiency if they can't right now. So when are we going to spiral back to this? Do I have additional opportunities? Do I need to, it's not just the retake, it's what do I do in between?
Right.
Right? So looking at those pieces too, what do we do in terms of intervention and additional support? And our students have been great about sharing how they're feeling in terms of piloting the resources and shifts in mathematical instruction. And so we were just talking about today in a leadership meeting about remembering it's not only a shift, when we make a shift educationally in instruction, our students have had all these years being taught one way, and so we have to remember that the shift impacts them as well, and consider what the impact is there. So a lot of our students were used to learning the algorithm, doing lots of practice problems, and then seeing similar problems on the assessment and doing really well. And now they're engaging in more mathematical thinking, mathematical discourse, that comfortable struggle, working through, strategizing, trying to apply what they know to novel situations. And that's a big shift. And that's hard to assess, harder than
Yeah.
applying the algorithm to a set of problems. So I think the work is still going and will be for a while, but I definitely think the new resource supports it.
Okay, and then my other question was related to, that we've also been talking about, making sure that students don't get stuck on a path in math. They're assessed in, let's say, 6th grade, and it's determined whether or not they're going to make it to calculus or not, at such an early age. And I think when we had Mr. Starr in here, he was talking about sort of a hybrid math class that he was doing so that kids aren't in either intro to pre-algebra or pre-algebra, and then they just have this one path that they can take through high school. They can sort of bridge that gap. And I was just wondering if you could talk a second on whether or not this
Definitely. It's one of the things we're
fosters
excited
that as
about
well.
with this resource. And Chris Darczewski was great, having come with a math background. His input was really valuable in our decision making. So Illustrative Imagine Learning offers what they call an accelerated version for grades 6, 7, and 8. And what they do is they take 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math and compress it into 6th and 7th grade math so that kids can access algebra in 8th grade. So the resource is 6th grade math, 7th grade math, algebra. So we won't have tracked classes in 7th grade anymore. So then our conversation as a curriculum department is, what do we do for the small number of kids who aren't ready to access algebra? So we talked about how do we create on-roads and off-roads for students when that's not the right fit.
So we wanted to increase access first and foremost, and then create the on-roads and off-roads when it's not the right fit. So one of the options we talked about was if a student needs an off-road, that we do a half year. We take the course and make a half year of it into a full year, and then they take the second half freshman year. So a little bit of a hybrid model there was one option, and it's something we're going to continue to explore with the representatives from Imagine Learning and department people.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Looking forward to hearing from the rest of your team.
Yes.
Thanks for coming. It's always good to see you.
be able to officially say we got the grants.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
It's exciting. All right. And now, yeah, but you weren't gonna present anything, I didn't think.
Totally up to you.
Yeah.
I'm fine running through them if you want.
I mean, I'll ask the committee, do we need to see anything else, or do you have any more questions about the budget? And do you feel ready to make a vote on it? I guess those are 3 questions.
Taking a straw poll?
I guess I'm taking a straw poll. Would anybody like to see the presentation again? We're ready, but,
I think I've seen everything and
heard
brought it
everything.
up again tonight. If there's any questions.
I can't speak. But I agree. My sinuses have clogged and I can't speak well, but I am okay moving forward.
Amy?
I'm fine.
Okay, great. Well then, I'm ready to take a motion. Whenever you are.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
move that the school committee accept the fiscal year 2025 operating budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Great. Well, thank you very much, and we'll obviously look for support at town meeting in May. And again, Dr. Cummings is presenting tomorrow night to the finance committee as well. So if they come back with significant concerns, I guess we can always reopen. Great. And now I am pleased to bring up Frank Rothwell, who is going to discuss our capital plan. Nice to see you, Frank. Thanks for being patient.
All right, so missed whatever happened, but this is Frank Rothwell, Director of Operations. He's been fantastic in that role, oversees buildings and grounds, transportation, food service, and while it doesn't directly oversee, I guess, nursing, works hand in hand with them to support our nursing department. So super busy guy, and he's been just invaluable. The two of us wanted to run through the capital plan. We put the plan in the back of the budget book. And we're just going to give you an overview tonight. So as you know, we have 6 buildings. We have over 600,000 square feet of building space. We also have the maintenance building garage at 3 Worcester Street, the old fire department. So those are our 6 buildings, and we obviously have space for some offices up in this building as well. So do you want me to just talk the whole time? Okay.
I'll jump in when needed.
He's gonna jump in. So we broke it down in terms of a summary into 3 pieces. One, what we have on the plan for FY '25. It's not every single thing. You can look at the plan. We're happy to take questions on anything. But some of the bigger things include a new fire panel at Millbury Street Elementary School. That's one of those, it's kind of a big ticket item, and we just have to do it. It's going to look exactly the same, and nobody's going to notice. So it doesn't feel great, but it's good to have a functional fire panel that the fire department is demanding. That's good. The PA systems we have, if you go into our schools, especially our older schools, they look exactly like they did when they were built. Up in the upper right, that refrigerator-looking thing is the PA system over at North Street. In today's day and age where we need safety, we need quick communication with everybody in the school, we should have the ability to communicate to certain areas, certainly have a back and forth, easy, reliable communication system with individual classes. It's piecemeal at best right now. So we are looking to replace the 4 oldest systems. So in every school except Millbury Street and the high school this summer. And we are up and ready to go. Going forward with the new system, they're really like phone-based. The days of having that refrigerator type thing are gone. So you'd walk in, you could look around for it, but you're not really going to see it, just like you would at the high school, in middle school. And even those are now over 10 years old, and we are planning to replace them as well.
And may I?
Yeah, 100%.
And you can, thank you. You can also access it from anywhere in the building as well. So if you're the principal and you have to do an all call from the farthest point in the building to the from the main office, you can dial in and do that. Some of them even have remote features.
That's a great point, which obviously with a host of scenarios that could play out, being tied to the office and that machine just is not safe or advisable. If you've ever been behind North Grafton Elementary School, they have a large blacktop. The cracks, you could kind of fit at least one kid in, most of them.
Sometimes those
they're gigantic, and it simply needs to be repaved. Simple as that. We have ceiling tiles at North Street Elementary School that need to be removed over the summer. That's a big project, just in that we need a lift. It takes up some space, so that will be a summer project. The entryway at North Street Elementary School, if we hit the lottery and had millions to spend, we'd probably redesign the entire entrance of that school, but we don't. But if you just walked in that door, you will remember it. It looks kind of like a little war zone for about 10 feet. And we want to redesign that, put down new concrete, either replace or certainly refurbish the doors, make it more accessible and just better in every way. So we've set money aside for that project. That's a long time coming. Also a long time coming, North Grafton Elementary School does not have any shades. It was installed or built with shades, but those have long disappeared, and that's they are tied to the safety plan, going back to the propane station going online. Like they should have window coverings that if there ever were an emergency, you could pull it down and limit damage within a classroom. Keying project, we've talked about this before. We had never centralized and basically rekeyed the entire district. So we had a host of original keys, when additions went on buildings, addition keys. Just our key situation was a mess. I never thought I'd say that, but it was and is. So last year we did phase 1 of the keying project, and ideally this summer we will have phase 2. Neil Trahan actually took the lead on that project in the first phase, and he will, with the tech department in cooperation with maintenance and custodial, oversee the second part of that keying project. So we'll have all new keys, master keys. The police will all have the keys that they need that actually work where they're supposed to work in every single school. So that's a good thing for us.
And we're able to track as well who has what keys. So it's the security
Yep.
benefit.
Dividers, those are in the bathrooms at North Grafton Elementary School, just, between the toilets, and just over the years of getting wet, they've rusted out and they're in disrepair. So we're going to replace those. We've got a grease trap at North Street Elementary School that needs to be replaced. We're working through, it's not as easy as you think getting 3 quotes for replacement of grease traps, but this guy is on top of it. And then the bathroom at GMS, and I highlighted this one in yellow or orange, in that we're utilizing, that's part of a larger project. As you may recall, now almost 2 years ago, we had an ADA accessibility assessment done for the district. To no surprise, it came back. I think in total, if you did everything on that list, it was like 2.4 million. We don't have 2.4 million. So we're trying to, with every year, chip away at what's most needed. We redid Frank and his team redid the bathroom, the women's bathroom near the gymnasium at the middle school. You may have seen it when voting. Did a great job. And this summer, we're going to do the other half, so the men's bathroom or boys' bathroom down there. Any questions about FY25? All right. Second part, you'll see in the plan, we've always, I think, done a nice job trying to lay out what our plans are for the next 5 years. Just to be brutally honest, it's super, we know right now, we know exactly what we'd like to do. Figuring out what we do in 3 years or in year 4 or year 5 right now is so speculative that we didn't spend a lot of time on it. We've listed what needs to be done, but inevitably, with 4 older schools and so much square footage, things are going to come up that aren't on our plan right now. And every year we get thrown that curveball. One thing I should have mentioned, so let me go back to step 1. For FY25, we're expecting to receive about $800,000 in funding for projects for FY25. For FY26 through 29, the projection is $600,000. Might sound like a lot of money, but when you have 600,000 square feet, it doesn't go far. So we've got some carpet replacement, tile replacement. That's speculative. That's a good example of something that's speculative. About 10 years after Millbury Street opened, you may recall that we had about a year and a half where, especially one summer where it was super humid and super hot, the tiles started popping up. Not everywhere, but in certain sections of the school, and we had to replace them. You can't just take glue and stick them back on. I mean, you could try, but this was a complete failure of the tiles. So we panicked and said, oh my gosh, we're going to have to retile this whole school. It turned out we had to do, I think we did maybe seven or eight classrooms, which is still a lot. But since then, the weather's cooperated, the conditions have cooperated, and maybe we've gotten lucky, but we haven't had more tile failure. But we're cautiously optimistic that we won't need that going forward, but we very well might. So that's on there. The building envelope at Grafton Middle School, where you see the blue, I don't know why they picked blue, but they did. Not that you spend a lot of time really close to it, but if you go close to it, you can see that it's starting to rust out, the paint's peeling. So that's going to need to be addressed. Right, and go ahead, Ray.
I just want to add that that's a much bigger building than I think most people can see from the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's all the way around, and it's blue. There's blue all the way around, and it's faded, and it just looks, it needs some love.
Yeah. Ceiling repair, that's predominantly at South Grafton Elementary School, not a safety issue. They had that old original popcorn painting or ceiling treatment. And when it gets hot and humid over the years, it peels and then falls off. We've been, knock on wood, in a better place lately. We went through a year where it seemed like every day it was falling down. But that's something that ideally we're going to be able to appropriately address. The remaining 2 PA systems at the middle school and, I'm sorry, not at the middle school, the high school and Millbury Street, those should be updated. They're much better than the 4 we're replacing this summer, but they're still not state of the art, and they really should be. And then in yellow, again, 2 bigger projects that our plan is to chip away at them every year. ADA compliance, as I spoke to earlier, and repointing at North Street Elementary. You can't see it too well, but if you got a good look at the bricks on the bottom right photo, the whole school isn't in that condition, but a lot of, there's a great need for repointing at that building. So obviously, if we have 100,000, 200,000, whatever we can allocate, we are going to prioritize the worst areas and repoint, or in this case, we'd have to replace those bricks.
Is this 600,000, is that assuming no override, or did you take that into
As
consideration?
far as I know, it's independent
Yeah.
of it. And the third and last part, we've got to replace the turf field It's our turf field number 1. It's the first one installed. It's the one within the track in the stadium. Frank has become an expert on turf fields. We can get probably another year out of it, but it is coming. We've been saying it forever, and it just, I don't know if it's just the concept of, replacing a field, like, that looks fine, but it's not fine, and it's definitely going to get worse and eventually become a safety issue. So that's probably the thing we probably talk about the most.
In the fall, when I first came on board, we in this role, I believe the number was over 250 repairs to that field, tears, and where they brought in other new sections to try to match and just to keep the field together and safe. I could really get into it. It essentially, these fields after 10 years, the grass, artificial grass, like falls sideways, and then when you put the fill, it just sort of packs on top. It no longer goes in between the grass to keep it. So it's almost like concrete. And the technology is very different now, where they put a foam pad under with a smaller grass blade. So there's always, you get longer life now because with the newer ones.
There was a year's difference between the installation of the two fields, and even in that year, the technology was advancing so rapidly that we're in much better shape with the second field.
I was skeptical of that when I first heard. I thought, I was with you, I thought, oh, really? The turf? Oh, come on, is it that?
Yeah.
And then I had the opportunity recently to see a field that had been just let go.
Yeah.
And it was basically, you get all the little black stuff. It was like piles of the little black material that the kids were running around on. And I thought, oh my God, this is not
So
safe. This is
We
not.
try to brush that, not through the
It
winter
was
months,
awful,
obviously,
yeah.
but like we're starting again. That'll get brushed pretty much every week. We'll brush those to spread them out evenly. Because you get gullies.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about turf. You get gullies where obviously where the players are, the goalie, let's say, in front of the soccer net, there's a gully there. So if you don't fill that in, once you get the gully, you're really kind of stuck with the gully.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry.
That's great. So we have been working, we haven't put it together yet, but we will have a memo with, in layman's terms, a synopsis of what's going on with the field, and information from the companies, the turf companies that do this professionally. We have it in a couple emails, but we're going to put that into a format that can be shared. We'll have a PowerPoint, etc. Playground accessibility, you'll see two things I put in green. Our hope is that we potentially can partner with other groups to make these a reality. So playground accessibility at North Grafton Elementary School. As you know, we, back in the fall, just opened up the new South Grafton Elementary School playground. Fantastic, so accessible, just great in every way. That was funded in large part through CPC funding. So just in some capacity, and I'm not sure exactly what we're even looking for at North Grafton Elementary School yet, I would anticipate at least looking to partnership or to access funds through CPC or another group. Bleachers at GMS, this is right up there with the PA system. It's just not the most exciting thing in the world. They're the original bleachers. They are functional. When the insurance company comes out every year, they look at the bleachers and say, oh, you guys should have brand new bleachers. They tell Frank, and Frank talks incessantly to me about the bleachers. Eventually, we're going to have to put money into, at the very least, repairing, but most likely replacing bleachers at GMS.
Are they worried? Is the insurance company worried about them?
They're always
collapsing?
worried about it. Oh, no. It was
What
more
are
the
they worried
pulling
about?
in, pulling out.
Okay.
Just a custodian's limb more than.
Okay.
Might be a bit
all right.
extreme, might be. As a former
they're-
principal at older schools, it isn't a shocker.
they're heavy to pull out, and it's not, I mean, they're not nylon wheels, you know, they're steel wheels, and the components are all made out of steel, so. But Dr. Cummins is accurate in that it is still a functional bleacher setup. It's just very dated, and there's new advancements with railings and safety features that I don't know if folks were thinking about that in the 1950s when they built those.
Right, no, I don't think so. Also in green, field house at Grafton High School, having been to, I'm sure, football game somewhere where they had a building, or at the very least, access to restroom facilities. Sometimes they're combined on, like, the other half would be concessions, that type of thing. We don't have anything like that at Grafton High School. We therefore need to be constantly staffing the school to open up the school for access to bathrooms. Sometimes it's large scale, oftentimes it's just 2 bathrooms, but we can't just open the door and say, have at it. So less the thinking, certainly around games, like our activities, but my hope would be, and I have not done this yet, but the reason it's in green, I am definitely giving consideration and will be speaking to town groups that utilize our fields quite often. They pay for use of the fields, and that payment, most of it, the great majority, goes to paying custodial overtime to open the doors and provide access to the bathroom. So there's probably a win-win in here somewhere. We're, of course, still want and need custodial presence for when we have tournaments, when we need trash, when we need people to go in and out of the school. But right now, any group that rents it on a Sunday doesn't have access to the bathroom unless we open it up. I personally don't think that's great. Even when we don't really have something going on, it's always kind of bugged me that whoever, the Late family, goes down and they run on the track and they play soccer and whatnot, and inevitably, normal life, somebody's got to use the restroom. Maybe you're going to Dunkin' Donuts. This building's not open on the weekends typically. The school's not open. We have nothing. So if we could do that in collaboration with some other groups, I think that would be worth pursuing at the very least. And we've walked the facility down there countless times looking for the right spot, because you've got to tie to electrical, you've got to tie to sewer. We don't know much, but we think we found the perfect spot. But we would turn to the professionals if we did move in that direction. I already touched on repointing at North Street, talked about ADA compliance district-wide, and we talked about the exterior at GMS. And I think that's all we have. Any questions?
Liz? Guess what? I have a question. About the field house, we've talked about sponsorships before too. Are we considering sponsorships for that? I know Shrewsbury, is it Shrewsbury? They have a really nice building outside there. I think that's owned by, I forget who it is, but a bank or something.
Yeah, we would definitely consider that.
Yeah.
I think if we do it right, the perfect marriage, if you will, would be between the school district, in-town organizations, lacrosse, football, soccer, and their connections with the community as well. That would be ideal.
Anybody else? Megan?
I had a quick question that's kind of related. But you mentioned the paving for the walkway at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a question. There's with the walkway to the student parking lot, if there's a section where it looks like the gate would be.
Horrible idea.
Okay.
There was one. The plan for the high school traffic, I am an expert in. It was one of the worst designs in the history of mankind. You walk by every day, you say hi every day.
Yeah.
Wonderful, both of you do. I'm trying to keep my sanity on that intersection. Mm-hmm. And what was happening when we first started is, of course, everybody would walk through that gate. So the traffic would then stop, not just twice, really 3 times if you looked at the whole thing, like, from above. But then you had students on their own crossing traffic, stopping it again. And it caused massive backups getting in. And you had to have, we tried to do it thinking high schoolers could cross the street by themselves. That lasted like a day. So we had to have another person. So if you can picture it, it would save the students about 60 feet, which I get it in the morning. But the cost was, after that, then they would go 2 cars, I'd have to stop them. Do you know, you'd have to think of it that way.
That makes sense, like when you say it,
It was,
like that.
it was awful.
Megan, I have a lot of pet peeves since
Yeah.
I've taken over this role. One of them is the, Dr. Cummins made this shift, I guess, a few years back.
Oh, yeah.
But the walkways don't reflect it, the crosswalks. So this summer, we plan on, we being the maintenance department, will repaint those things. And also the way you get from the student lot to that little corner spot where you wait, it's kind of like there's plastic New Jersey barriers there. We want to make that really clear that that's a walkway for young people. And if there's old people parking down there, they may. And then when you cross back over, you kind of cut back over to the main one. We want to line that as well. So it's very evident where to walk.
That's awesome. Just because, like, even still, there's people that jump over the gate, and
Not
it's
in the
like
morning. I yell at them. In the morning, that is not
in
tolerated.
the afternoon, it's
I
fair
don't
game.
have, I can't handle it. I can barely handle the morning.
Did you notice that the walkway got fixed?
Yeah, I did.
Amy?
About the field house, did you ever get a chance to price out the awesome bathrooms I told you about?
Yeah, we did look at those. I forget off the top of my head what the price was. I mean, if we have to go,
Not the King Richard's Fair setup. The really nice ones at Vanderwalk Winery.
We did look at those.
I called several companies
Okay.
and talked to them about singles, doubles. You know, they're like, "Do you need the handicap one?" Well, if we're gonna get them, we need a handicap. It got pricey really quickly, and I was kind of hoping we could just tow the nice one that you're referring to that has the handicap accessible. You put a hose to it, you can wash your hands, but they're really, really way more expensive than I thought they would be.
When we do break that down and when we're finally ready to even have real discussions about it, we will include that data, because the figures in terms of tying into sewer, electric, if those come up super high, we may not be able to make it work even with a partnership.
Yeah.
And then what? Do we do nothing? Do we look for
Yeah.
some kind of middle ground, and that would be it? So we will have that.
I worry when you talk about having them open all the time. Like I know at Nelson, there are certain groups that have a key because you cannot leave those bathrooms available to the public. They will get destroyed.
Yeah. If I did say that, I didn't mean
Okay, because you were like
24/7
some family could go
access.
down on the field and then like there's nowhere to go. There would still be nowhere to go. Like if it's just people hanging out and there's not an activity, then the bathrooms would not be unlocked. The only public bathroom I know of in town is at the townhouse. You can walk in there pretty much any time and use the bathroom, and they keep it nice. But that's too far, right?
Yes.
You might as well go to Dunkin' at that point.
Yeah.
The other question I had was about the North Street entryway. Do we need to put a bigger project on that 200,000 list? And I say that because that's the one school when I go in, it doesn't feel the same way the other schools feel. And I'm not talking from an aesthetic perspective, I'm talking security wise. It does not feel at all the same as the other schools to me. And I can certainly talk about that in detail later. But I just wonder if we need some consistency there in terms of how people get into that building. They can completely bypass any sort of personnel. And in my opinion, none of the schools, maybe South Grafton might be like that too. But in terms of stopping people from entering the building, you walk in one set of doors, you walk in the second set of doors, you're in the building, you can go that way. Office over here.
Buzzed in, though. You have to get buzzed in.
You can go left
You can-
instead of straight to the office. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
You could go towards the.
And you don't always have to get buzzed in. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Liz, you're right. but, you know, there's definitely ways for people to come in behind somebody else who's being buzzed in. And there's nothing. You're in the lobby, you can take off down the left side. And I think at South Grafton, it's the opposite side. So the office is on the left, you walk into the foyer and there's,
Yeah.
you can go right through.
I'd have to give that thought. I don't know, other than having somebody full-time at that door. I mean, I think we're talking
I mean, the glass.
tremendous money.
The glass between the office staff and the front door is not really set up so there's a clear vision, there's a clear view. It's kind of pushed over, but we've talked with them about that maybe they could move some things.
And I know they have cameras, but anyway, that's what I thought you were getting at when you were talking about the entryway and the design of it was the security aspect.
It just, if you walk into all the schools, and not because of the efforts of the staff there, but it just doesn't feel welcoming. You go in that little buzz,
War zone, yeah.
yeah, that little
Yeah.
box, and you kind of wait to be buzzed in, and that's, and while you're waiting and you look around in there, it's just the floor is all cracked, and I mean we need to spruce that up.
I don't disagree. But I just thought maybe if you wanted to do more, it might be worth adding that to the list of longer range, higher ticket items.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I didn't realize how expensive bleachers are. Really expensive.
Yep.
Everything.
And roofs.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for coming. Frank, you've been doing an outstanding job this year. I really appreciate all of your efforts. Jay as well. You're also doing an outstanding job this year.
Mostly Frank.
But Frank, yeah, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to hearing more.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all.
Yeah, and if you want to come back and do a whole like night 101 on turfs,
Yeah,
glad to listen.
we will. Turfs and bleachers could be the name of the.
Ooh, great. We could do a PD on it, maybe. Touch of Jen.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Good to see you. Did you want to do your goals up there, or just from your seat? Or-
Yeah, I didn't.
You didn't
I
do-
didn't create any slides. I'm happy to. I can speak about it quickly though.
Yeah, why don't we speak about it? Why don't we get our student representative report since we're about 8:30, and then we can
All right.
talk to you. Is that good?
Perfect.
Does that work? All right.
On Friday we have the first Model UN conference. I feel like we talk about it every single meeting, but we're really excited about it. So we're going to be having a field trip. So the Model UN members will miss school for the day, and we're going to go into Boston and have our conference.
Cool. Do you guys have uniforms?
No.
But we have to dress business casual.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like a dress code, but it's not like a uniform situation.
Is it at a hotel or
It's
a
at
conference?
Northeastern.
Yeah.
At Northeastern.
Wow.
And then we have the G-term selection on March 13th during Gator Gab. And then there's the Easter egg hunt for preschool to second grade, which is hosted by the 2025 class on March 23rd.
Today at lunch we had a mental health resource fair and we had representatives from Shine Initiative and Youth and Family Services like in Shrewsbury, and basically just they had booths like during lunch where students could like go up and talk to them or like find out ways to get involved. And then finally Mr. GHS is this Friday at 7 p.m.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Great. Thank you both. Good to see you. Have a good night. Thanks for coming. I don't know why I just thanked you for coming, but thanks for coming. Thanks for doing your job. All right. I'm gonna push it back to you.
Oh, sure. Thanks. All right. I provided the school committee with a 2.5 page summary of my work on goals to date. As you may recall, I have 4 goals. I set them as 2-year goals. Goal 1 is around proficiency in literacy, and that one, and the second goal being proficiency rates in math. Jen started discussing those tonight. At the next 2 meetings, we're going to get the committee will get a full breakdown of progress that we've made in both of those areas. This is one of those goals where I certainly do my best to support Jen Mannion and the instructional team and our staff, but they've done 99% of the work. So any of the progress really is attributable to them. I think in a general sense, we're going to see an uptick, an increase, 1 to 3%. And I'm glad that we have an increase. My hope and expectation is that with all the work that you started hearing about tonight in terms of curriculum, in terms of PD, in the implementation in the fall of, or full implementation of these 2 different pieces of curriculum, that we're going to see more significant growth next year. That's my hope. Goal 3 is around professional practice. That was about the director model. So we made the shift. We don't have, with Kristen leaving, we didn't fill that position, created the operations position, which was basically moved responsibilities around. And we created the operations, so didn't fill the director of buildings and grounds, made that operations. So he still does what Mr. LeMay did in the past, plus he oversees transportation, which is huge. Oversees or supports nursing and food services. I think that's worked incredibly well. I've made some decent decisions in my 13 years, but I put that right up there. It's been a challenge this year, not having an assistant superintendent. I mean, Kristen was obviously one of a kind, and she was absolutely wonderful, but having that position to constantly be able to lean on and kind of divide and conquer, without that, it's definitely been a challenge, I would argue. Long term, that's not something that I would recommend that the committee keep. I think eventually bring back that position. But having the 6 directors, so that one additional director, but obviously we took away the assistant superintendent position, allows those directors to focus on really more one area, or their scope isn't as broad. If we go back a year, our finance director was also in charge of all transportation. A finance director with a relatively small staff trying to also do food services, oversee transportation day to day. And we have issues every single day, no matter how well you do, you just do. I think it's worked exceptionally well. I'll get some feedback in like a month. I think beginning of April, actually, not even a month. I will give you, I'm doing a mid-year, but it's really the end of the year. I'll give you a detailed summary of how I think that went. I guess it's forced feedback, but obviously I want the directors to talk about what worked, what didn't work with the new model, and if we can improve upon it. Any questions about that or that shift? Yeah.
I was just curious, do you find that you're spending a lot more time than in the past meeting with the individual directors, or do you feel like it's okay?
It's not that that's a bad thing.
No.
We also had a lot of, it would have been easier, obviously, if we didn't have as much new. If all of the directors had been in their positions for years, that would have been not a walk in the park, but very easy. Like I spend probably the least amount of time, I check in with them every day, but Neil Trahan, technology director, has been doing the job for years. We still connect, but I don't have to help him learn how to be a tech director. Mandy came on board doing a wonderful job, but is learning how to be an HR director. Kathleen Lungarini, finance, is doing fantastic, but you can't be, just like we did it 2 years ago. That doesn't exist. Frank's in a new role he's done terrific, but there's a lot with that. But I will stand by it. Just put aside what he's doing with the buildings and grounds. I don't think, until like 3 weeks ago, I don't think I dealt with one transportation issue. I don't think there was a day that went by that I wasn't, not only on the phone, but I'd have to go out, look to see if the stop is unsafe or whatever. I haven't had to do that. That's been invaluable. So while it's been more time in some areas, it's less time doing some really inefficient things in the past.
I have a follow-up if I could. I know that when, way back when Anita started, she had a mentor, and I think you mentioned that Kathleen
She does.
has a mentor outside of the district. Does that exist for these other positions?
It does. Mandy has, well, I don't remember the name of her organization, but yep, she formally has a mentor through that. What is it?
MASPA.
Oh,
That's-
NASPA.
okay.
NASPA. And Frank partnered with, worked closely with Greg Myers, the superintendent in Millbury. He's always raved about how wonderful his director of buildings and grounds is. So I reached out. We created a partnership and a formal mentorship between Frank and their director of buildings and grounds. So not only has he helped Frank learn how to do the job, he knows who does roofs. He knows the good companies that work on boilers. Like, he's got tons of experience. It's awesome.
Okay, great.
Great, and it's,
Oh, and sorry, my last one I've done okay with. Goal 4, professional practice. Students and staff will demonstrate an enhanced sense of connection and inclusion. I have not, I said I would do surveys. I haven't put out surveys yet. I have met with dozens of individual students, for the most part at the middle school and the high school. I've met with individuals. On Thursday is our first group meeting, where a meeting, I forget what they call the block, but kind of their maybe extended. We're going to do that block plus another 20 minutes and focus with that. It's myself in that group of high schoolers. We're focused on cyberbullying and connection, and technology in there, really to talk about how their social lives, unlike when we went to school. I don't know about Mandy. There wasn't, you didn't have texting. It was like one life at school. You get on the bus, you go home, and you start another life. Now it's 24/7. And while that's wonderful in many ways, it's really challenging in many ways too. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a great group of high school students. Yeah, that's my summary.
thank you. Okay. Do you want to go in?
Oh, do I ever?
Superintendent report?
At the last meeting, we talked about contracting with NESDEC again to take a reassessment, given all the construction taking place in Grafton. I did that. We have signed contract with them. We already have a long-term contract with them, but I contracted for $1,200 for them to do a full assessment on our enrollment, and they do a fantastic job. So that's signed, and we've sent them data. They will now connect with other departments in the town, and they're working on it. So I think that's a great thing. It came up a few times tonight. I went to the GHS Science Fair on Wednesday. Last Wednesday, it was great. 15 exhibits. So it was the biggest one that I've seen. And I wanted to thank Mrs. Gibbs. She was she's a science teacher at the high school and was the fair coordinator. Did a really nice job. So it was super impressive. On Thursday, wanted to thank the PTG. We went to the North Street Elementary School for a fundraiser. They had pasta and bingo. And it was a great pairing. The sixth grade students served the pasta, and we played bingo. I saw Laura. They had different, at least 2 different sessions or seatings. And played bingo, and the kids served the food. It was great. The money is going to scholarships for Nature's Classroom. So that was great. Thank you to them. And lastly, we have finally started the composting program with Black Earth. Last week, I think we started with it's in the kitchen right now. So all of those scraps are being recycled to kind of figure out how that works. This coming week, we add to that and we start in the cafeteria or the commons area. Once we work out all the kinks that I'm sure exist there. We have students who have an interest in science, environment, are going to take the lead and train the lower schools and those kids on how to do it, which is a win-win. I mean, typically the younger kids think it's pretty cool when a high school kid comes down and teaches them how to do something. So again, I think that's a win-win. I'm excited about it. And Frank and Jay Cody have done really good work getting that going. Yeah, and that's it.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a housekeeping note. I had skipped over the Student Opportunity Act plan. We're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to add that to our next agenda because
Yeah, that's just a bear of a plan. All districts have to do it. We don't really bring in, some districts bring in, I think it's 80% of the 20% of the districts bring in 80% of SOA, Student Opportunity Act funds. So we are in that 80%. It doesn't get much, but we still have to create a plan that's pretty extensive. I thought I'd have it done, but I just don't. So at the next meeting, I'll go over what that is, share the plan for your consideration. Ideally, you vote to approve it. If there's an issue with it, we can bring it back in early April. I think that by law, or the state is trying to have all districts in the state have them approved by April, or in April.
right, end of April. Great, yeah. So that's why I skipped over it, if anyone was following along. HR report.
Yeah, I've since our last meeting spent a lot of my time in the schools meeting with principals. We're looking forward to the spring and just making sure that everyone's on the same page with staffing needs and plans with what they're anticipating doing for the 24-25 school year. It's also a season of recertification for a lot of our teachers, and I'm finding in this role just the benefit of meeting with them one-on-one and walking them through the steps of making sure that they have their licensure all set. A lot of them are kind of leery about what that process looks like. So it's been a good few weeks getting into the schools and seeing the kids and making sure everyone's set up for success for the spring.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions from Andy or Jay? Ashley? Okay. All right. Thanks so much. Future agenda planning. So we'll move the Student Opportunity Act to our next meeting. Let's see. We're running out, yeah. We'll hear from North Grafton and South Grafton Elementary, which is always exciting. We'll get this teaching and learning report that Jen referenced with Tracy and Steve. Yeah, so that's exciting. Anything else we did add? Oh, we haven't, it's not reflected, but we talked about adding that May 28th meeting. Don't make me go down the dates. So we'll make sure that's reflected in here. But
We are doing that?
we are,
Okay.
yes. Yes, to reorg. And if needed, if something has come up or that we have to deal with, sometimes those end of May
Okay.
issues can creep up on you. Okay, if anything comes up, of course, feel free to email me or Jay.
This could be a fun week.
Oh,
Graduation.
yeah. Yeah. Exciting week. And we have a warrant, or we have minutes. What's next? Minutes. We have 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I vote that the school committee approve the minutes from February 6th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Motion been seconded. Any further discussion? Amy?
I have a couple of things. Page 2, it says Laura often inquired for the school aide. I believe it should be side. So that makes sense. I wrote these all up, so I'll send them
Oh,
over.
perfect.
Great.
Page 6, NEAS should be NEASC. Caden Ashmore's name is spelled incorrectly on page 8. And page 13, under the discussion about ARPA, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. It says ARPA visited Grafton with a recommendation on a new software system from Dr. Cummings and Mr. Trahan. I'm guessing that's in reference to the last ARPA meeting. But
Okay.
it's
I can
worded
straighten that out.
Yeah.
interestingly. So those were the things that I caught.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, anything else? All right, so we have the motion and the second and the edits. I don't think any of these edits really changed the tenor of the minutes, just some cleanup. So all those in favor? All right, motion carries 4-0. Thank you, and thank you, Amy.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the school committee approve the minutes of the meeting from February 27th, 2024. With any possible adjustments to be made by any member of the committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Oh, yes. I have 4 items. They're mostly Caden Ashmore's name is spelled wrong several times. NEAS on page 4 should be NESDEC. And on page 7, there's a sentence that says she proposed the following Tuesday is only to meet for, it should be if. Other than that, I'm all set.
So for the record, Caden's name starts with a C, not a K.
Yes.
Okay, well, you're gonna send over edits, so that's fine. All right, all those in favor? All those abstaining? All right, motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We go warrant?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Yes.
I move the committee adopt warrant number 34, dated February 22nd, 2024, in the amount of $89,201.92.
Second.
Motion been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All right, motion carries.
Madam Chair, I move the committee accept warrant number 35, dated February 29th, 2024, in the amount of $209,513.87.
Second.
Motion been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to policy.
You were gonna say something.
No, I saw your computer open, so.
Oh, yeah, no, I just, there were a couple of things, we've been talking every once in a while at meetings about looking at our bullying policy, and I didn't know if the time was right to plan a meeting to talk about that. And then the other thing I thought it might be right for us to talk about was absences and attendance. I know the schools have been working on efforts to try to, deal with that, and they've been kind of, some of, as far as I know, taking different approaches, and some are
Yeah, we
working.
actually have some good news on that front.
Yeah.
So, and that actually, can I?
Yeah, of course.
Reminds me, I forget what the topic was, but Kevin Carney wanted to come before the committee either next meeting or the meeting after that to talk about something related to grades and I don't remember, maybe assessments, but he wanted to go before the committee prior to NEASC arriving to have a somewhat small discussion. But at that same time, we could hit on attendance.
So maybe we wait to hear from him, but at some point, I think we should revisit
Yeah,
our,
well-
I was just wanted to bring that up as a couple of things that maybe we can look at, but maybe
I
it's too.
mean, we actually met and talked about
Okay,
that
so
today.
maybe
so
it might
the-
be too early to do that and
Oh,
before
no,
we
I think
meet with him.
next weekend or the weekend after.
Yeah.
Or weekend, my gosh, I'm losing it. Next meeting or the meeting
Yeah.
after.
No, I mean, as a policy committee, we wait to hear from him
I thought you wanted,
first,
I see.
and then
I got you.
maybe we see if we need to. I just,
Okay,
something to
I
think
missed
about.
that.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Member reports? I have a couple while you guys are thinking. I also went to the pasta and bingo night. It was fabulous fun. I didn't win any bingo, but it was great.
Weren't you one of the originators of that
I
fundraiser?
I founded it, and I
So-
loved coming back and seeing it move forward, and it was elevated. It was nice to see, and they did a fabulous job. I've had bingo too, but I never combined the two, so it was awesome. And also, I had the great privilege to read to South Grafton Elementary School for Community Reading Day. It's the first time I've ever been invited. I got to speak to this Tanya's preschool class, and they were phenomenal, and it was the highlight of my month. They sent me these great cards that say readers are leaders. Thank you. And that is so true. And I read to them, what do you do with a problem? And I asked them if they'd ever have a problem. And they said, yes, the rain is a big problem because the worms come out. And sometimes my mom has to pick me up and carry me so I don't step on the worms. And we had a great discussion about worms and superheroes. And Marvel, and of course, my favorite Marvel character was not their favorite Marvel character, but that's okay. And I could have stayed all day, but I was there right before snack. So at one point, a nice child went up and just got their snack. So it was wonderful, and I was so grateful to get to go and see everybody. It also happened to be National Oreo Day and National Wear a Dress Day. And I saw Mrs. Leif there, and I was in a dress. So it was fun. Great. And I was really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you. And I absolutely love getting mail that, look at these. They're so great. And they, just so awesome. Had their names. They're so great. And I want to go back and spend all day with them.
That was a great day.
It was really great.
I do have a couple of school-related announcements, I guess, if I may. Let's see. The Bon Voyage Committee has its next meeting. The Bon Voyage is the senior night lock-in, the night of graduation, and we're still planning that event. And so if you'd like to become involved, our next meeting is March 28th at 6:30. They're all in the student activities room at the high school. We also have our follow-up meeting planned for April 24th, same time, same location. March 29th, we're having, I mentioned it last time, but we're having a Parents' Night Out as a fundraiser for the class of 2026. All are invited. Tickets are on sale, and they are $25. You come, and we're having food and drinks, and we'll have background music and getting together with a panel of parents experienced in the college application process.
What is that word? What is that? War torn or war?
We're sharing their war stories, facts, and
Tears.
and hopefully not some tears. Trying to prevent maybe some tears next year, but sharing some of their experiences, answering questions, and it's sort of a mix of a fun parents' night out, and we'll have a little bit of learning, and there's a raffle as well, so that'll be fun. We're still, tonight was the last night for donut sales, so those will be delivered on March 20th by the kids who sold them. And the senior yard sign sale starts April 3rd. So if you have a senior, look out for that. We'll be putting that out. And last, prom tickets are going to go on sale. I think it's around March 25th, the last week in March. And your dues have to be up to date to buy your prom tickets. So get those dues in, get those students' dues in if they haven't, and get your prom tickets. They're only $65 this year, so they've gone down, which we're very excited about. And come to prom. It's going to be at the AC Hotel, and it's going to be great.
Come to prom.
Go to prom. Send your students, your juniors and seniors to prom.
So we're not going to prom.
We're not going to prom. We're
No.
probably
sure?
decorating for prom, and then I'm leaving, and my child
Okay.
would kill me if she found me
Same.
there, even hiding in the shadows.
I threaten every year. I could be a chaperone.
Do not know. It'll be well chaperoned, but not by us.
Awesome. Anybody else? Amy.
I'm surprised I didn't hear the student reps mention this, but Friday at 7:00 is Mr. GHS.
They did.
They did say it. I missed it. I love the little alligator with the crown that they're using to advertise it. I think it's very cool. March 2nd was World Teen Mental Wellness Day. Had I known before, I would have sent that before. But it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I would like to see that become something that's recognized and communicated with families throughout the district each year. I tweeted and sent out resources for kids and for parents. Because I know we have a lot of people in our community that are struggling. And that's not a failure of the district, it's just the way things are now.
Well, thank you for that. All right.
I have something, I'm gonna
Okay.
try and talk. I may botch the date, but I believe Millbury Street, South Grafton Elementary School, PTSO is doing a trivia night fundraiser on the 28th at 7 p.m. Is that right? Thank you. I tried to find it and I was pretty sure that's what's happening. So that would be really fun and would be a great thing to go to.
Awesome. Lots of fun things coming up. Yeah, I know also North Grafton Elementary, or NGES PTG is having their spring fling coming up as well.
March 22nd.
Yeah,
Soon.
At Highfields, right?
yeah.
Yep.
And they're gonna have a mashed potato or a potato bar with mashed potato, I mean,
That's why I'm going.
and a good
really.
band.
Fair.
And a good band. But, I mean, we used to have a potato bar at my college. It's like the best night, Wednesday nights.
We have potato night at my house. Like
We
every
do
once in
too,
a while, we have
sometimes,
baked potato
yeah.
night. We just make some chili, baked potato bar.
I'm really just excited for my donuts. Just
Okay.
saying, I'm just letting you know. Real excited.
Awesome. Well,
Donuts, potatoes,
carbs.
good stuff.
That helps.
Order
That
far
mental
too many of
health.
those every year. So
Okay. So we're gonna, any other updates? All right, we have one piece of correspondence tonight. I was asked to read it. It's from Christy Kalabazinski. Is that Kalabazinski? Thank you. Good morning. This came Sunday, March 10th, 2024 at 10:29 a.m. I received it that evening. Good morning. Please let me know when the next policy subcommittee meeting will be held. As you know, this is considered correspondence to the school committee, and I expect it to be mentioned at the next meeting. Please address when the last subcommittee policy meeting was held and when the next one will be held. Additionally, the GPS website still does not show the new MASC policies that have been adopted. Please address this as well. As of now, it is showing 2023 policies on the website. Please explain the holdup, as we are 3 months into 2024 and still do not have accurate information on the website. Here is a link to the current website, GPS policy. Thank you. So I responded. Our last policy subcommittee was over the summer. I don't remember the exact date because of what we did, which was move to MASC policies and all of our policies that we wanted to keep. Liz and I had done a review, so it's updated. It was my bad. I had meant to work with Lynn. I don't have access to the website, so I am working with Lynn. She's meeting with Neil tomorrow, and she will wipe all of our former policies off, and there'll be a redirect to MASC's policy. So if the committee is concerned about anything, it doesn't seem like anyone has been concerned about our policies, not the policy subcommittee not meeting. We obviously are always on the lookout for policies that need to be updated, and I mentioned in my response that MASC always gives us policies quarterly. Last one was December. We were still updating, so we're good. When they come out at the end of March, we will review and make sure they're updated. So thank you for the correspondence. We do not need to go into executive session tonight, so I'll call for adjournment.
So moved.
All right, all in favor? All right, good night, Grafton.
Good night.